Welcome back to the channel, everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how my UK tropical garden looks at the end of summer. So let's get straight into it. Let's face it, this summer has been a total washout. We've barely had a summer, and of the 4 summers that I've had in this garden, it's definitely the worst in terms of I've barely spent time in it enjoying it, and it felt like it's rained most of the summer. So yeah, we're in the end of September now, and even though the sun is shining and we've got blue sky at the minute, that is not reflective of the experience we've had. So I'm going to go through different parts of the garden and look at some successes and some failures and maybe some plans for next year too. And we'll start over in what I call the sunny border, which is over here. We've got the bananas, the Musabastiu bananas over there, which have done really well. I kind of half expected a flower this year, and it hasn't happened, but you can see how tall they are, taller than the pergola now. So not long until they do flower, but shredded and looking tatty as they usually do at this time of the year. And I've got a lot of pups coming now underneath, which I can split. Now if I look from the deck down, sort of down here, you can see that I've got lots of pups coming up now that are a good 4 or 5 foot, and you can see these leaves here lower down, I think, give a nice fuller look to that border. So I'm really considering how I'm going to overwinter these, because as they get taller, obviously it's harder to overwinter, and I kind of feel like maybe I should just leave it and see what happens. Maybe I should cut them down to maybe fence level, which is about 5.5 foot maybe, or something like that, and make it easier to wrap. But there's 3 main pseudo stems there. So yeah, I'm interested in your thoughts really. Maybe I'll not wrap them up this year. I'm still deciding. And I have got another one over there now. So I did dig up a few pups from the Musabastiu, and I've put one there, which I'll probably leave unprotected to see what happens. And I did sell a few others. So yeah, the bananas have been good, but you can see when they're in shelter, lovely attractive leaves, and as soon as they reach over the fence line, shredded. Yeah, so let me know what you think. I want to mention the eucalyptus trees actually, because I cut these. I usually cut them back in February, March, and I take the main growing point off the middle, because I don't want to get them. I don't want them too tall. So I did it on all 3, and definitely it's worked really well in terms of encouraging the growth further down. So if you've got eucalyptus trees in your garden and you're I think the end game is usually they're going to have to be pruned hard at some point, but you see there's a lot of like cover. I kind of like this sort of lower hanging cover with the eucalyptus trees. Otherwise they'd be 40 foot, 50 foot in no time, and you wouldn't get any privacy from them. But I kind of like that. If you look through there, you've got like a tunnel, and I think it gives a nice effect on the eucalyptus. The next thing I want to talk about is the Trachycarpus, and of course these trachys are bulletproof in the UK, and you can see that it did flower this year. I've left them on. Obviously didn't the flowers weren't fertilized, pollinated or whatever, so I didn't get any berries, but you can see now it is really shooting up the growth. So from here, this is where the height of the trunk was when I got it, and it's grown in 2 years that much, but it's really putting on growth. And also the fronds are getting really big now, because it did sulk for a while, which is what they do when you transplant them, only with a small root ball. But it is doing really well, as are my 2 smaller ones. Again, the sort of the length of the, I don't know, is that a petiole? I don't know, but this part of the frond is getting a lot longer this year than it was last year. These were both garden centre purchases, really small, so they're coming on really nice. The next thing I want to talk about is the Fatsia, because everyone has Fatsia, and it is sort of it's overlooked, but it is a very useful plant for filling gaps. These two either side of the jungle stream, that does work, by the way. Someone asked me, does it work? And it does work. I just don't turn it on unless I'm enjoying the garden. Yeah, so again, the kind of direct sunlight, sort of yellowing, looking a little bit unhealthy, but they are turning into a canopy, which means I get to underplant them. And this Fatsia over here is now becoming the canopy. It's higher than the fence, and I've got this underneath, you know, the understory to think about. So it's given me a lot of options next year, I think, where I can sort of clear out underneath and sort of plant some shade loving plants like more ferns, hardy ferns. So that's one of the plans for next year, is think about lifting the crown of the Fatsia and underplanting. The next one I want to talk about is the Tetrapanax, and I've got two sort of growth points on this one now. The sort of the twins, because they were two. You see under there now, you can see the woody bit, and then the growth this year. It's done really well, and if it's got a little bit of overhead shelter from the trachea, I'm hoping that it doesn't die back like a few of my other ones did last year. But I'm really pleased with the growth on these. They just come labelled as Tetrapanax, so I don't know what form it is, but for me it doesn't really matter. I mean, look how cool the leaves look. Yeah, awesome leaves, and it's sort of filled the gap, because at the beginning of the year there was a bit of a gap in this area, the border, but it's filled it really nice. So I'm really pleased with the Tetrapanax, and I'm hoping that a Tetrapanax that died in this bed over winter last year is going to sprout up somewhere else. Next, I'm going to talk about another staple plant for tropical style gardens, and it is the Cordyline, and it's another one that is a bit of a filler plant, kind of overlooked and underloved. But this Cordyline flowered in spring. You can see the remnants of the flower stalk here that are cut off. Huge flower. The flower was as long horizontally as the plant was as tall at the time. Now this plant was tiny. It was like a 2-litre pot that went in, and it's forming a decent trunk now. You see there's a trunk that's sort of leaning away from the shade of the Eucalyptus, but it has now it's flowered, got 2 growing points. So that'll be nice to see how that develops going forward. And my other Cordylines, spear pulled last year in the cold weather, but it's bounced back and it's doing really well. So you can see, again, this one was a tiny plant. There was no trunk on this one, and now you can see how tall it is. So that's doing really well. We'll move on to a few other things like these Euphorbia shillingi that I can hear the seed pods popping as I'm walking around. What else have we got? We've got the Passiflora still flowering. That'll flower all the way up to the first frosts. Rudbeckia are still doing really well. They last really long. The Rudbeckia for me here, usually mid-August all the way through. The Echinacea have sort of gone now, but I like the seed heads on there. And the Achillea, I do need to cut these brown ones back, because these smaller flowers will appear if you cut back the first sort of flush of flowers of that size, and then you kind of get these as secondary flowers. So yeah, still plenty of colour in the garden that I'm pleased with. Obviously the verbena everywhere, does need thinning out probably now, but it's pretty unobtrusive. So one plant that's been a bit of a disappointment this year is the Paulownia tomentosa, the foxglove tree, empress tree, whatever you want to call it. It is smaller this year than it was last year. I fertilised it, I pollarded it, I did everything that I thought I need to do to encourage big leaves, and this is the biggest leaf, and it's not very big. It's probably shaded out too much by the Fargesia rougher, which I kind of feel like needs hacking down now. I have tried to sort of clean the stems up on the bamboo. But yeah, maybe it just needs a better position. Let me know what you think if you grow Paulownia. How can do I just have to wait? It's been in the ground for 2 years. This is its second full year it's been in the ground, so am I just being impatient or not? Speaking of bamboo, this is my Chusquea gigantia seedling that I got from Yorkshire Chris at one of his open days. Let me know what I need to do, because obviously I've not found a spot to put this, and I'm going to need maybe a large area for it. 4 meters, someone said, in terms of a radius for the clump. Not radius, diameter, sorry. And I've not got anywhere to put it yet, and I don't want to put it in the ground too soon until I know where it can look its best. So I'm going to have it in a pot over winter. Is anyone else growing Chusquea gigantia? If you are, where are you overwintering it? Can it be left outside? I know it's hardy when it's older. Is it hardy now? I've got it under this tarp that will keep most of the rain off, even though it's got holes in it. So let me know about the Chusquea gigantia. Next, I'm going to talk about the tall grasses. So there we've got the Miscanthus giganteus, which is massive this year. I think probably as tall as it will get now. Looks awesome. Sort of hollow in the middle, the clump. So maybe it's worth dividing that. But I think that's going to look really nice for a few months yet. It obviously does brown up as it gets into winter, but really good winter interest for me. And then we've got the Arundodontax next to it, which is never as nice looking for me. I have said it before in previous videos. Big chunky culms, look at the size of those, healthy culms. But again, it doesn't look as good and it hasn't spread as much. Maybe I'm sort of, haven't given it a lot of room under that. Well, I mean, it's a thug anyway, so it should do well. But yeah, I'm a bit disappointed in the size of the clump, if not the height. Any thoughts on that, do let me know. And then I've got the other tall grass, which I did a video on earlier this year, which is the Miscanthus lutearia parius or something like that, which is taller than the gigantia, and it has those nice pink culms. So I got a few pieces of root from Ben at Cliff Bank Nurseries, and I put them all in here, and you can see that's from one rooted cutting that took all of the other ones, everything else died, but look at the colour there, awesome colour. And it's obviously, you can always see it pushing out next year's comes. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that develops. It hasn't grown very tall this year, maybe from the base to the tip, maybe about, well, maybe 6 to 8 foot, I'd say. But yeah, looking forward to seeing how that grows next year. The next plant I want to talk about is the Gunnera, and this has been one of the biggest disappointments for me this year, really. Of course, this year it's been banned in cultivation. You can still have it in your ground, you can't sell it, etc. And yeah, it's just looking very uninspiring for me. I've obviously cut back the early leaves. This is the size of the leaf here. This one was one of the early ones, and then there's one through there, but everything else that came up early in spring I've cut back because it's died. I went on holiday to Lanzarote, and it was hard to keep up with the water, and got family to do that. But even with that, a lot of the leaves browned off, or they were leaning too far over the path, so I cut them back, and all these little ones are now the secondary ones. And for me, it's, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of it anymore. I've lost that initial love of the look of the Gunnera. Maybe it just needs more space, I don't know. Maybe I just need to plant it in an actual wet area. And looking where I've planted it, it's sort of underneath the Eucalyptus, which is a thirsty plant, and it's hard work to keep it watered. So I've got to have a rethink on that. I'm not sure about it, but I'd be interested in see what other people think. The cardoons are still standing, barely. I kind of like those dead looking seed heads now. I'm just going to leave them on there for the birds to eat or whatever, but they both did really well. It was one plant, but it did really well. this year. And then we've got the Euphorbia mellifera, the honey spurge, which sort of is pushing its way through, but I do need to rethink this bed. I do think I'm going to kind of cut this bamboo back and try and create more of a feature of the Euphorbia mellifera, because it is actually planted sort of in the middle of the bed, and I was hoping it would fill this space. So I might cut back the Fatsia and allow that to bulk up, and hopefully it will be hard enough to form a decent sized clump there going forward. But I think that's it for the main parts of the garden. Fig tree's doing really well. I've got a lot of fruit this year off the fig, and next year's fruit has already appeared. I've already done a video on my arid bed, so if you want to see the arid bed breakdown, look back a couple of videos on my channel, and I am going to be covering that very shortly with an overhead protection for winter. And then my greenhouse cactus collection, because I've already packed a few things away in there, a few tropicals are packed away in there as well. I will be doing a separate video for my end of season cactus collection. So in terms of my UK tropical garden at the end of summer 2024, a wet and mild summer, that's it. Join me in the next one. Cheers.